During a naval ceremony honoring elite SEAL teams, General Harlan Vance spots a quiet man in a worn jacket standing at the back of the hangar. With a smirk, he calls out to him in front of everyone. "What's your call sign, hero?" The crowd erupts in laughter as the general continues his mockery, gesturing dramatically while uniformed officers join in the ridicule. The veteran remains silent, eyes fixed on some distant point, his scarred hands clenching slightly at his sides. When finally pressed too far, he raises his head and speaks just 2 words that instantly freeze every person in the room. Veterans straighten. The general's face drains of color, and suddenly everyone understands exactly who they've been laughing at. Whispers spread like wildfire through the hangar, with one officer muttering about a legendary operative from Baghdad who vanished years ago. Tension builds as active-duty SEALs exchange knowing glances, their postures shifting from amusement to rigid respect. That's when the first subtle clue emerges. The man's weathered watch, engraved with coordinates only insiders would recognize. The atmosphere thickens, conversations halting as more eyes turn toward him. What nobody knew was that this unassuming figure held secrets that could topple careers. But what happened next shocked them all. Before we continue, if stories of quiet dignity and unsung heroes resonate with you, type honor below. And tell me where you're watching from. This story of Jack Harlan reminds us that true leadership is earned through service, not demanded through rank. I read every comment. Consider subscribing for more untold tales of quiet heroes among us. But to understand how this moment came to be, we need to go back 3 hours earlier. The morning had started like any other in the small coastal town of Clearwater Bay. Jack Harlan, 43, worked alone in his modest boat repair shop, his calloused hands moving with practiced precision across the hull of an aging fishing vessel. The salt air mixed with diesel fuel, creating a scent he'd grown accustomed to over the past 7 years. His movements were economical, efficient. The kind of efficiency that spoke of training most people wouldn't recognize. "You're here early again?" a voice called from the dock. Alex Harlan, Jack's younger brother at 28, approached carrying 2 thermoses of coffee. Unlike Jack's weathered appearance, Alex carried himself with the casual confidence of someone who'd never seen real combat, never made decisions where lives hung in the balance. Jack accepted the coffee with a nod. "Couldn't sleep? Figured I'd get a head start on the Morrison boat." Alex leaned against a piling, studying his older brother. "You know, you've been more restless than usual. Something on your mind?" "Just work," Jack replied, his tone suggesting the conversation was over. But Alex persisted. "The naval base called yesterday. They're doing some ceremony for returning SEAL teams. Asked if local businesses wanted to participate. I thought maybe—" "No." The word came out sharper than intended. Alex frowned. "You always do this. Anything military-related, you shut down. I don't get it. You served, didn't you? Why the avoidance?" Jack's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Some things are better left alone. What Alex didn't know, what nobody in Clearwater Bay knew, was that his brother had once been someone else entirely, someone whose name was spoken in whispers in classified briefings, someone who had made choices that saved lives and destroyed his own identity in the process. The watch on Jack's wrist caught the morning light. To anyone else, it looked like a standard military timepiece, worn and scratched from years of use, but the engraving on the back told a different story. Coordinates that marked a place in Baghdad where everything had changed, where Jack Harlan had ceased to exist and Steel Phantom had made his final stand. "Fine," Alex said, breaking the silence. "But the ceremony is tomorrow. They're honoring operations from the past decade. Might be good for business to show some community support." Jack turned back to his work, but his hands had stilled. Tomorrow. Of course it would be tomorrow. The universe had a cruel sense of timing. The next morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Jack stood in his small bathroom, staring at his reflection, the scar on his neck. faint but visible, was a reminder of the insignia he'd once worn with pride, the same insignia that would be displayed prominently at today's ceremony. "You don't have to go," he told his reflection. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Alex had already committed them both, and backing out now would raise questions Jack couldn't afford to answer. The naval base checkpoint was thorough. The security guard examining IDs paused slightly longer over Jack's, his eyes flicking between the photo and the man before him. Something flickered in his expression, recognition perhaps, or just routine suspicion. He handed the ID back without comment. Inside, the hangar had been transformed. Rows of chairs faced a stage draped in navy blue, with display boards showing sanitized images of recent operations. Jack positioned himself at the back, near an exit. Old habits died hard. Commander Sarah Chen, a sharp-eyed officer in her 40s, noticed him immediately. She'd spent 20 years in naval intelligence, and her instincts were finely tuned. Something about the way this civilian moved, the way he scanned the room, positioned himself with clear sight lines to all exits, set off alarm bells. "Who's that?" she murmured to Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a decorated SEAL standing beside her. Webb followed her gaze. "Local. Boat repair guy, I think. His brother runs a small business in town." "Boat repair," Chen repeated, her tone skeptical. "Watch him during the ceremony. Something's off." As the ceremony began, General Harlan Vance took the stage. Tall, imposing, with a chest full of ribbons, he commanded attention effortlessly. His voice filled the hangar without needing amplification. "Distinguished guests, honored veterans, ladies and gentlemen, today we recognize the extraordinary courage of our naval special warfare operators." Jack remained perfectly still, but Chen noticed the subtle changes. The slight tension in his shoulders, the way his breathing pattern shifted when Vance mentioned specific operations. Operation Desert Hawk, Vance announced with evident pride, resulted in the elimination of 4 high-value targets in a single night. The team I commanded executed flawlessly, with 0 civilian casualties. Jack's hand opened and closed at his side, a barely perceptible rhythm that Chen cataloged mentally. Operation Iron Shield recovered critical intelligence that prevented attacks on 3 Allied bases. My strategic oversight ensured mission success despite challenging conditions. A muscle worked in Jack's jaw. Webb noticed it too now, his attention shifting between the general's speech and the quiet man at the back. And perhaps most significantly, Vance continued, his voice taking on a more solemn tone, "We commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Baghdad extraction. Difficult decisions were made under my command. We saved American lives while upholding the highest traditions of naval service." That's when Jack's hand trembled, just once, barely visible, before he steadied it against his leg. Chen leaned toward Webb. "Baghdad extraction. Wasn't there controversy around that operation?" Webb's expression darkened. "Officially, no. Unofficially. I served with guys who were there. Their version never matched the reports." "What happened?" "Hostage situation gone wrong. Command ordered an abort, but someone on the ground refused, stayed to get the civilians out. 3 operators died in the firefight. The team leader was blamed for insubordination and disappeared from the records entirely." Chen's eyes widened. "Disappeared?" "Vanished. Some said witness protection. Others said he was buried so deep in classified files that he might as well be dead." Webb paused, studying Jack with new intensity. They called him Steel Phantom, because he moved like a ghost and had nerves of steel under fire. At the front of the hangar, Alex Harlan sat with other local business owners, completely unaware that his brother's past was about to collide with his present in the most public way possible. The ceremony transitioned to a reception. Vance mingled with guests, accepting congratulations and praise. His eyes swept the room with the confidence of a man who believed his version of history was unassailable. That's when he spotted Jack. "You there!" Vance called out, his voice carrying across the hangar. "In the back. You look like you've served." Heads turned. Jack met the general's gaze but said nothing. Vance smiled, sensing an opportunity to demonstrate his authority. "Come now. Don't be modest. What branch?" "Navy," Jack replied quietly. "A long time ago." "Navy." Vance's smile widened. "Then you understand the significance of what we're honoring today, the sacrifices made, the difficult calls that commanders must make." Something in Jack's expression shifted, a hardness that made Chen's instincts scream. "I understand sacrifice," Jack said, his voice still quiet but carrying a weight that silenced nearby conversations. Vance, oblivious to the warning signs, pressed on. "Excellent. Then perhaps you can appreciate the complexity of operations like Baghdad. When you're in command, sometimes you have to make the hard choice to abort a mission, to save the greater number, even if it means abandoning civilians to certain death?" Jack interrupted, his tone still controlled but with an edge that cut through the general's rhetoric. The hangar grew quieter. More people were paying attention now. Vance's smile faltered slightly. "That's a simplistic view of a complex situation." "Is it?" Jack took a step forward. "What if the intelligence was wrong? What if the extraction point was compromised because someone leaked the location?" Chen's breath caught. Webb's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm, though he didn't draw it. "That's a serious accusation," Vance said, his voice hardening, "and one made by someone who clearly doesn't understand the realities of command." "I understand that 3 good men died that night," Jack replied. "I understand that the official record says they died because of insubordination. But what if the truth is different?" Alex had pushed through the crowd, confusion and concern warring on his face. "Jack, what are you doing?" Jack didn't look at his brother. His eyes remained locked on Vance, who had gone very still. "Who are you?" the general asked, his earlier confidence evaporating. Webb stepped forward, his voice low but clear. "Sir, I think you should know—" "I know exactly who he is," Vance interrupted, his face flushing with anger and something else. Fear. "He's nobody, a boat mechanic with delusions of—" "Show them the watch," Chen said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension. All eyes turned to her. "The one on your wrist. Let them see the engraving." Jack hesitated, then slowly removed the watch and held it up. The coordinates were clearly visible, etched into the metal. 33, 3152 degree N, 44, 36661 degree E. Webb pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. His face went pale. "Those are the exact coordinates of the Baghdad safe house, the one from the extraction operation 10 years ago." "Lots of people could have those coordinates," Vance said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Not with that specific engraving," Chen countered. She'd moved closer, examining the watch. "That's not standard issue, that's custom. The kind of thing operators make for each other, for brothers who serve together." An older veteran in the crowd spoke up, his voice shaking. "I was support staff for that operation. I remember hearing about a watch. One of the operators who died, Brooks, I think, he was a watchmaker before he enlisted, made custom pieces for his team." Jack's expression softened briefly. "Brooks made 4 watches, one for each of us on that mission. He gave them to us the night before we went in. Said it was so we'd always find our way back to each other. 3 of those men died," Webb said quietly. "Which means only one person could still have that watch." The crowd had grown completely silent now. Even Vance seemed frozen, trapped by the weight of revelation closing in around him. Alex stared at his brother as if seeing him for the first time. "Jack, what is he talking about?" But before Jack could answer, Vance made his fatal mistake. Desperate to regain control, he sneered and asked the question that would destroy him. "What's your call sign, hero?" The question hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. Jack stood perfectly still, and for a moment it seemed he might not answer at all. Then slowly, He raised his head and met Vance's eyes with a gaze that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. "Steel Phantom?" The reaction was instantaneous. Webb's eyes went wide. Chen actually took a step back. The older veteran who'd spoken earlier whispered, "Oh my God, he's real." Throughout the hangar, active-duty SEALs straightened to attention. Some of them had heard the stories, legends really, of an operator who'd defied direct orders to save civilians, who'd carried wounded teammates through 20 kilometers of hostile territory, who'd vanished from all official records as if he'd never existed. Vance's face drained of all color. "That's impossible. Steel Phantom is—" "A ghost?" Jack finished. "That was the agreement. Disappear completely, take a new identity, and the Navy wouldn't court-martial me for insubordination. I had a 6-month-old brother who'd just lost his parents. I chose him over my career." Alex's legs seemed to give out. He sat heavily in a nearby chair, staring at Jack with a mixture of shock and dawning understanding. "Mom and Dad? They weren't my parents?" Jack's expression softened as he looked at his brother. "They were, but they died in a car accident when you were an infant. I was your legal guardian. When everything went down in Baghdad, I had to choose between fighting to clear my name or being there for you. I chose you." "This is absurd," Vance sputtered, but his voice lacked conviction. "You have no proof of any of this." "Don't I?" Jack reached into his jacket pocket slowly, aware of the security personnel watching his every move. He withdrew a small object wrapped in cloth. Unwrapping it revealed a ring. Simple, silver, with an inscription inside. Chen took it carefully, reading aloud. "To Brooks, from the team, Baghdad or bust, 2014. Brooks gave me that ring the night before the mission," Jack explained. "Told me if anything happened to him, I should make sure his wife got it. But by the time I could surface, she'd moved on, remarried. I couldn't disrupt her life with ghosts from the past." Webb's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up with an expression of grim satisfaction. "Sir, I just received confirmation from NCIS. They've been investigating discrepancies in the Baghdad operation for the past 6 months. They're very interested in speaking with you, General." Vance's face went from pale to red. "This is a setup, a coordinated attack on my reputation by—" "By who?" Chen interrupted. "By a boat mechanic who's been living quietly for 7 years. By NCIS investigators who've been working independently. Or by your own lies finally catching up with you." The general's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Jack continued, his voice steady and factual. "October 12th, 2014. The safe house was compromised. You ordered us to abort from your command post in Qatar. But we had 4 hostages, 3 children and a journalist. We stayed. Those were not your orders," Vance snapped, finding his voice again. "No," Jack agreed. "They weren't. But the extraction point you designated was an ambush. Someone had leaked our position. We would have walked right into it." Webb's expression darkened. "The official report says the team was ambushed because they delayed at the safe house." "The official report is a lie," Jack said flatly. "We were ambushed because someone in command sold us out. The enemy was waiting at the extraction point before we even left the safe house. They knew exactly where we'd be and when." Chen's mind was racing. If that's true, then the 3 operators who died because they trusted their command, Jack finished. "Brooks, Tanner, and Rodriguez. They died covering our retreat when we had to find an alternate extraction point. They died heroes, but the official record calls them casualties of insubordination." An older woman pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down her face. "My son was James Rodriguez. They told me he died because his team leader disobeyed orders. They told me it was his fault." Jack's composure cracked slightly. "Ma'am, your son saved my life. He held off an entire squad so the rest of us could get the hostages to safety. He was the bravest man I've ever known." The woman approached Jack, studying his face. Then, without warning, she embraced him. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for telling me the truth." The emotional moment was interrupted by the arrival of two men in dark suits. NCIS special agents, their badges clearly visible. "General Vance," the lead agent said, "we need you to come with us. We have questions about several operations under your command, including Baghdad." Vance's face contorted with rage and desperation. "This is outrageous! I'm a decorated officer with 30 years of service. And we're investigating whether some of those decorations were earned through falsified reports," the agent replied calmly. "Mr. Harlan, we'd like to speak with you as well. Your testimony could be crucial." Jack nodded. "I'll cooperate fully. But first, there's something these people need to understand." He turned to address the crowd that had gathered. "I didn't come here to destroy anyone's career or to seek recognition. I came because my brother asked me to support a community event, but I can't stand here and listen to lies being celebrated as truth. The Baghdad operation was compromised from the start. The intelligence we received was faulty. The extraction point was leaked. And when everything went wrong, General Vance ordered us to abandon 4 innocent people to save his operation's success rate." Webb spoke up. "I've heard rumors about Baghdad for years. Guys who served with the support team said things didn't add up. But the files were sealed so tight that nobody could get answers." "That's because the truth would have ended careers," Chen added. She'd been making calls during the confrontation, and her expression was grim. "I just spoke with a colleague in intelligence. There's been a quiet investigation into Vance's operations for months. Multiple discrepancies, multiple instances of taking credit for successes while burying failures." Vance made a move toward the exit, but security personnel blocked his path. The NCIS agents stepped forward. "General, you need to come with us, now." As Vance was escorted out, the hangar erupted in conversation. Alex approached Jack slowly, his expression a mixture of awe and confusion. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" he asked quietly. Jack met his brother's eyes. "Because I wanted you to have a normal life. I wanted to be your brother, not some legend or ghost from a classified past. Everything I did, disappearing, changing my name, building a quiet life, I did it for you." "But you sacrificed everything," Alex protested. "I sacrificed a career," Jack corrected. "I gained a brother. That's not a sacrifice. That's a choice I'd make again in a heartbeat." Commander Chen approached them. "Mr. Harlan, or should I say, Steel Phantom, the Navy owes you an apology, and more than that, we owe you recognition for what you did." Jack shook his head. "I don't need recognition. The men who died deserve that. Brooks, Tanner, Rodriguez. They're the ones who should be honored." "They will be," Chen promised, "and so will you. The record will be corrected. The truth will be told." Webb stepped forward, coming to attention and rendering a crisp salute. "It's an honor, sir." One by one, other service members in the hangar followed suit. Active duty, veterans, even some civilians with military backgrounds. They stood and saluted the quiet man in the worn jacket who had carried the weight of injustice for 7 years without complaint. Jack returned the salute with perfect precision, muscle memory from years of service evident in every line of his body. Then he lowered his hand and turned to Alex. "Can we go home now?" Alex laughed, a sound somewhere between joy and disbelief. Yeah, we can go home." As they walked toward the exit, Jack paused and looked back at the hangar, at the displays honoring SEAL operations, at the people who now knew the truth, at the life he'd left behind and the life he'd built in its place. "Jack," Alex asked, "you okay?" Jack nodded slowly. "For the first time in 7 years, I think I actually am." 3 weeks later, Jack stood in a secure conference room at the Pentagon. The space had been transformed with flags and formal military displays. Despite the classified nature of the event, the room was full. Military personnel in dress uniforms, intelligence officials, and most importantly, the families of those lost in Baghdad. Alex sat in the front row, still processing everything he'd learned about his brother. Beside him sat Commander Chen, who had become an unexpected ally in the push to correct the historical record. The Secretary of the Navy spoke first, his words carefully chosen to acknowledge the classified nature of the event while emphasizing its importance. "Today we correct an injustice," he stated firmly. "Today we honor courage and sacrifice that, for reasons of national security, have gone unrecognized for too long." Jack sat stiffly in his assigned seat, wearing a suit that felt foreign after years in work clothes. He'd resisted this ceremony, but Chen had been insistent. "The families deserve this," she'd told him. "And so do you." The secretary outlined the basics of the Baghdad operation, the new evidence that had emerged, and the findings of the investigation. He described how intelligence had been manipulated, extraction plans compromised, and the truth buried to protect careers rather than honor sacrifice. 3 men gave their lives that night, the secretary continued. Staff Sergeant Michael Brooks, Chief Petty Officer James Tanner, and Specialist Carlos Rodriguez. They demonstrated extraordinary valor in the face of impossible circumstances. Today, their records are formally corrected, and Navy crosses will be presented to their families. The ceremony proceeded with somber dignity. Rodriguez's mother, whom Jack had met at the hangar, accepted her son's medal with tears and pride. Brooks's widow, who had traveled from across the country, held the medal to her chest and whispered words Jack couldn't hear but understood in his soul. Tanner's father, a retired Marine, stood at attention as he received his son's recognition, his weathered face carved with grief and vindication. Then Chen stepped forward. "We also recognize the survivors of Baghdad. Men who completed the mission against overwhelming odds, who refused to abandon innocent civilians despite direct orders, and who carried their wounded brothers through hostile territory." She paused, her eyes finding Jack. "Master Chief Petty Officer Jack Harlan, known to his team as Steel Phantom. A man who made the hardest choice a commander can face. To continue a mission when ordered to abort, knowing the cost of either decision would be measured in lives." Jack rose slowly, the name and rank he'd abandoned settling around him like an old familiar coat. He walked to the front of the room with measured precision. The secretary handed him a case containing the Navy Cross. "Your country thanks you for your service and your sacrifice. The record has been corrected." Jack accepted the medal with a crisp nod. "Thank you, sir. But the real recognition belongs to those who didn't come home." As he returned to his seat, he noticed Alex watching him with an expression of profound pride. His brother had spent the past 3 weeks asking questions, learning about the man Jack had been before becoming his guardian. Instead of creating distance, the truth had brought them closer. After the formal presentations, the families approached Jack one by one. Rodriguez's mother embraced him again. "You gave me back my son's honor," she said. "That's a gift I can never repay." Brooks's widow shook his hand firmly. "Michael talked about you in his letters. He said you were the best leader he'd ever served under. He was right." Tanner's father saluted him. "My son died a hero. Thank you for making sure the world knows it." Each interaction chipped away at the wall Jack had built around his guilt. For 7 years, he'd carried the weight of their deaths, believing he could have done something different, something better. But seeing their families find peace in the truth began to lift that burden. Webb, who had been instrumental in pushing the investigation forward, approached with another man, older, with the bearing of someone who'd seen combat. "Steel Phantom," Webb said. "I'd like you to meet someone. This is David Morrison. He was the journalist you pulled out of Baghdad." Morrison's eyes filled with tears. "I've been looking for you for 10 years. They told me everyone on the extraction team was dead or classified beyond reach." Jack shook his hand. "You made it out. That's what mattered." "I made it out because you refused to leave me behind," Morrison corrected. "I have 3 children now, a career, a life, all because you disobeyed orders." The weight of those words settled over Jack. 3 children who existed because he'd made a choice. Families who had their loved one because he'd refused to abandon civilians. It didn't erase the cost, but it gave it meaning. 2 months after the Pentagon ceremony, life in Clearwater Bay had returned to a comfortable rhythm. Jack worked in his boat repair shop, his hands moving with the same practiced precision they always had. But something had changed in his bearing. A subtle shift that Alex noticed immediately. The weight that had burdened him for years had lifted. The secrets he'd carried alone were now shared, acknowledged, honored. He moved more freely, his actions less guarded. "You seem different," Alex observed one morning, bringing coffee to the dock as he always did. Jack smiled, small but genuine. It transformed his face, erasing years of careful vigilance. "I feel different. Lighter somehow." "Any regrets?" Alex asked. "About coming forward? About everything that happened?" Jack considered the question carefully. "No, the truth needed to be told, not for me, but for Brooks, Tanner, and Rodriguez. Their families deserved to know they died as heroes." A car pulled up to the boatyard, a rental with out-of-state plates. A man emerged, followed by a woman and 3 teenagers. Jack recognized David Morrison immediately. "I hope you don't mind the visit," Morrison said as they approached. "My family wanted to meet the man who gave me back my life." Morrison's wife embraced Jack. "Thank you doesn't seem like enough." The teenagers, 2 boys and a girl, stared at Jack with a mixture of awe and curiosity. The oldest boy extended his hand. "My dad told us what you did. That's pretty incredible." Jack shook his hand. "Your father's courage in that situation was incredible. I just did my job." "You did more than that," Morrison corrected. "You proved that some things are worth fighting for, even when the orders say otherwise." As the Morrison family toured the boatyard, Alex stood beside his brother, watching. "You saved all of them," he said quietly. "The hostages. The families of your team, even me. You've been saving people your whole life." Jack put a hand on his brother's shoulder. "And I'd do it all again." The sun set over Clearwater Bay, casting long shadows across the dock. Jack Harlan, once known as Steel Phantom, had finally found peace. Not in recognition or medals, but in the quiet knowledge that his choices had mattered. That the lives he'd saved had gone on to create more lives, more stories, more moments of joy and connection. Some heroes wear uniforms and receive medals in grand ceremonies. Others repair boats in small coastal towns, their greatest victories known only to those they saved. Both are equally worthy of honor. To everyone who typed honor and shared where you're watching from, thank you for recognizing those who serve in silence. Subscribe for more stories of unsung American heroes who prove that true greatness needs no announcement. See you in the next one.